I used to think I knew what fear was. Night hiking, bivouacking above the tree line, storms shredding the sky. I was wrong. Real fear is a thing that smiles at you from the trees and waits for you to notice it can smile. I went into a forest somewhere in Europe. I can't tell you the country or the name. I wish I could. I remember everything, except where it was. I was that guy who flew alone with a pack and a paper map. I liked the empty places, the unsponsored kind. Peak bagging, forgotten ridgelines, survival drills for fun. I'd sleep in a ditch if the stars were good. That day, I left a road whose name I can't recall and stepped under pines so tall they met above me like teeth. The trail was old, not maintained, but honest. Boot scars, deer prints, a ribbon of earth running between trunks like a vein. It was late afternoon, the air the color of pewter. My GPS breadcrumbed just fine, my compass agreed. Everything ordinary, until it wasn't. I came out of the trees and stopped so fast my pack thumped me between the shoulder blades. There was a lake, huge, a black mirror laid in the center of a dark forest. The water was dark like glass. Not because of algae or silt, but because the surface was so perfectly still. It refused to show texture. It reflected the sky like polished obsidian, and where the wind should have brushed ripples across it, there was nothing. No rings from insects. No soft laps against the shore. Just a flat, cold eye. The silence hit next. Not just quiet. Grave quiet. No birds, no midges thrumming, no frogs coughing in the reeds. Nothing living made a sound. Even my breath felt too loud, like a shout in a church. I cupped my hand to take some water and heard the leather creak of my glove and the tiny spit of a single drop falling back. And then the silence sealed over it like a scar. The trees around the shore leaned in and seemed taller here, as if they were trying to see their faces. Their bark had that wet sheen forests get before rain, though nothing fell. The air smelled like wet stone and old coins. I told myself I'd mark the spot and loop back by dusk. I took a photo. The screen showed the lake, the trees, the gray sky, but my reflection was wrong. I looked slightly away from where I knew I'd been facing, like I'd been caught in a candid by a person standing to my left, not by my own hand. I laughed. Nerves. Pareidolia. I stepped closer. That's when the voices started. At first, a breath beside my ear that wasn't wind. Then 2, 3 layers. Of whispering, like a crowd trying to stay polite in a museum. They overlapped, out of sync, building a shape in the air. No words I could parse. Except mine. My voice, right behind me. Laughing. I spun, trees, trunks like pillars, my footprints in the humus. The lake behind me did not move. Shadows slid between trunks, quick as animals, but wrong in their articulation. Movement without gait, like they adjusted from one position to another instead of crossing the space between. Fear isn't always a shout. Sometimes it's an instruction whispered directly into your bones. Run now. The fear came like dying in small, repeated bites. Every second a new death, a fresh choke. My legs shook before I told them to move. My tongue stuck to my teeth with metal taste. I backed away, then turned, then did not look back. The laughter followed, not loud. Close. From wrong angles, above, to the side, inside my pack, inside my chest cavity where the heart goes. Little increments of hysteria, like someone testing which key would fit me best. I ran. Branches slapped my sleeves. Roots reached for ankles. The forest thickened and thinned in ways that didn't match the topography. I knew how to keep a bearing by sun and slope. The sun chose not to help. It just grayed out like an old TV and left me guessing. Every time I stumbled, something leaned closer. Not a step, a nearness. The way you feel a person at your back before they touch you. The whispering grew teeth. The laughter learned a new mouth. I kept repeating the rule out loud, like a prayer with only 3 words in it. Don't look back. Don't look back. Don't. A twig snapped inches from my right ear at the level of a smile. I didn't look. Then, like a trick of theater lights, a warm square opened between trunks. Not sun. Lamplight. A window. A cabin sat in a slight hollow, roof thick with moss. Smoke skimming its shingles as low as fog. A human shape crossed the window. Slow, deliberate, carrying a kettle. I sprinted for it, crashed into the clearing, and banged my fist against the door once, twice. It opened before the second hit landed. He stood framed in lamplight. An old man, maybe 70. Beard to the chest, steady eyes, a hat like an ushanka, ear flaps and soft fur, but braided with something I didn't recognize, cords and a little brass charm worked into one side. He pointed at the threshold, then at me, then inside. No words. He was a mute. I stepped in. The door shut, the world outside muted. Further, like the cabin swallowed noise and kept it. Inside, a single room, low ceiling, rafters hung with bundles of dried herbs. A wide table, a stove with a bowling kettle. He moved like a man who had memorized his house in the dark. He set a clay cup before me and poured tea the color of tobacco. Bitter. Sweet. Alive with something that pushed warmth down and out through my fingers. He watched me drink, nodding slow. Then he stuffed a clay bowl with sprigs from the rafters, juniper, yarrow, something resinous and sharp, and lit it with a twist of birch bark. Smoke coiled, white and nervous, and he walked it round the room, tracing the door frame, the window jambs, the seams of the floorboards. He drew smoke across my hair like a blessing, and patted the crown of my head with 2 fingertips. I tried to speak. There's something at the lake. I heard. He raised a palm, gentle but firm. Stay. He pointed at the floor near the hearth, then at the door, and shook his head with a face that made the meaning unmistakable. Do not go out. He brought paper and a stub of charcoal. At first he wrote, quick and neat, lines of a language my brain slid off of. Letters with hooks and spines, accents like tiny knives. I shook my head, apologizing with my hands. He watched my face, saw the comprehension fail, and nodded once. Okay, then flipped the sheet and began to chahastraw. A forest, tall trunks, an oval lake, a ring of little marks around it like a fence, a skull and crossed bones, pressed into one corner with ugly emphasis. Then me, simple but unmistakable, a man with a cap, a square pack, boots like rectangles. He drew a circle around the man, and over the circle drew a shape like a shield. In the shield he marked a small symbol, 3 lines crossing in a knot. He tapped the symbol, then tapped the notch of my throat, checking my eyes. Protected. Next, he sketched the cabin, a square, a chimney, a lamplight halo, and a stick figure man Mar, outside at the door. His hand slowed. He drew something else, something with too many elbows, as if the charcoal didn't want to stay in the right angles. A guy long-limbed thing, with a head too smooth for a face, no features but a slick suggestion of where a smile might be if a smile were a wound. The thing's arms bent the wrong way around the man. The stick figure tipped, not running, not standing. Eaten wasn't the right word. Taken I was. He put the charcoal down and met my eyes. No drama, no theatrics, just the rule, in pictures. Inside is shield, outside is not. I swallowed and nodded. I understood. The old man didn't flinch. He set the bowl of smoking herbs by the door and took up a second bundle, this one braided with red thread. He held it in the smoke till the braid darkened and hung it from the inside handle. Night came like it had been crouching under the floorboards, waiting to be let in. The first sound was a laugh, not human, but using human shape. It modulated up and down the way a person tests a whistle they just found. Then the whispers returned, ringed around the cabin, speaking through the slats as if the walls were teeth they could talk through. The old man moved like a ritual. He refreshed the smoke when it thinned. He touched the door with his palm at intervals that felt deliberate. 1, 2, 3, like a metronome the room obeyed. The tata windows is breathed. I know how that sounds, but the glass fogged and cleared in the slow loops, as if a giant lung pressed against the world and exhaled into our pains. The lamplight fluttered as if ashamed to be seen roaring. Something scraped. A long line across the outside wall. The sound had depth in it, layers like something carrying its own echo. Then something laughed from the roof directly above me, the way a person laughs when they lean over a balcony and test gravity with their voice. I reached for my pack. The old man's hand was already there, pinning it to the floor with gentle force. He shook his head once. No. I nodded and let the strap sag from my fingers. Hours happened. I can't tell you how many because my watch's face went to at some point and didn't come back until daylight. The whispers developed a rhythm, like they were learning a language she and I together, practicing the vowels just outside the door. Every now and then, the laugh would try on a different shape. Old woman, young man, my own. The one that nearly cracked me was a child's giggle turning slowly into a cough. At some point I dozed sitting up, palm flat on the plank floor, feeling the grain like a heartbeat. I woke because something tapped in the window, glass 3 times, and knew my name. Not spoke it. Knew it, like the syllables formed themselves in my head from outside. I stared at the window. The old man hissed, soft like a kettle just beginning. He shook his head. No. So hard his hat slipped to one side. I didn't look. This is the part that still finds me in sleep. The moment the laughter stopped. Not faded, stopped. The silence returned and sat, heavier than before, like a weight on the roof. Then a single, long breath slid under the door. It smelled like the lake. Cold metal, old coins, and something sweet as rot. The smoke from the herb bowl flowed. Toward a bee. It, but when it hit the air coming in, the smoke folded and turned back on itself, as if hitting an invisible pain. Whatever was outside stayed outside. Dawn didn't arrive like light. It arrived like permission. An edge under the door brightened. The whispers thinned. The house exhaled. The old man lifted the braid from the handle and tied it around my wrist with a firmness that felt like closing. A circuit. He nodded toward the door. Now, he opened the door. The clearing looked like it had been rinsed. The cabin's eaves dripped. Birds tested the air with 3 notes and then committed to a song. The old man stepped out first, looked left, right, up, then beckoned. We walked. He knew the forest the way old men know their kitchens. The path he took wasn't a trail exactly, but nothing resisted him. The trees parted a little. The ground chose not to catch my feet. We came to the logging road like surfacing. A car, older model, dented, waited as if it had been there all night. The driver, a broad-shouldered man with a cap pulled low, leaned his elbow on the window frame and watched us approach. The old man tapped his own chest, then me, then made the shape of a rectangle with his fingers, ticket, pass, and pointed down the road. Station. The driver nodded like he'd been told this story before. I turned back to thank the old man. He was already walking away. The hadn't swayed with his steps, ear flaps grazing his jaw. He didn't look back. I remembered not to call. Some names are not for the open air. The driver took me to a station with a name I didn't know and a timetable that didn't make sense until it did. He didn't ask questions. He didn't charge me. He pointed at a bench and mimed sleep. I sat. I slept. When I woke, I was on a train heading somewhere that knew what clocks were. Back home, I checked the photos. The lake one is there. If you zoom into the surface, you can see the sky, the trees, and, if you push the pixels, a second horizon, faintly misaligned with the first. My reflection still looks a few inches to the left of me. The braid the old man tied around my wrist smelled like smoke for a week after I cut it off. I kept it in a drawer until it stopped smelling like anything, and then I burned it because the quiet in the room changed when it was there. People ask where the forest was. I don't know. Or I do, and something in me refuses to move the right file to the front of the drawer. I never went back. If you ever step into a forest and find a lake that looks like black glass, if the silence feels engineered, like something turned the world to mute, if laughter comes from behind you in your own voice, do not turn around, do not follow whispers, do not test the door, and never, ever step onto territory you don't understand just because it looks ordinary from far away. Some places aren't lost. They're hunting.